Fast food jobs aren't disappearing with layoffs or headlines. They're fading quietly, one shift at a time. Restaurants still look busy. Orders still get filled. But behind the counter, fewer people are doing more work than ever before. Hiring has slowed, schedules have tightened, and many positions simply aren't being replaced. This isn't because people stopped eating fast food. It's because the industry has learned how to operate with less labor. And once that realization sets in, those jobs don't come back. What's happening right now isn't a temporary slowdown. It's a permanent redesign of work that most people won't notice until the opportunity is already gone. Fast food has always been treated as the most stable layer of the American job market. When factories closed, when offices downsized, when recessions hit, fast food was supposed to be the fallback. These jobs were everywhere, always hiring, always short-staffed, always available. That assumption is now breaking. Not with mass firings or dramatic announcements, but through something far quieter and more permanent. Positions aren't being replaced, hours are being reduced. Stores are learning how to operate with fewer workers, and once they do, the old jobs don't come back. From the outside, everything looks normal. Restaurants are open, drive-thrus are busy. Orders keep moving. But behind the counter, the workforce is shrinking. This is not because people stopped eating fast food. Demand is still there. In many cases, it's higher than before. What's changed is how companies meet that demand. The fast food industry has quietly entered an efficiency phase, and labor is where the cuts are happening first. Hiring data already shows it. Job postings are down across major chains. New openings take longer to fill. Not because applicants are missing, but because positions are no longer urgent. Stores are scheduling fewer people per shift and pushing existing workers to handle more tasks. This isn't framed as layoffs, it's framed as optimization, but the effect is the same. Entry-level roles disappear. Part-time hours shrink. Turnover no longer triggers replacement hiring. Managers are told to do more with less, and systems are put in place to make that possible. Automation plays a role, but not in the way most people expect. It's not robots replacing workers overnight. It's incremental changes that reduce labor needs without drawing attention. Self-order kiosks remove cashiers. Mobile apps reduce counter interaction. Centralized kitchens streamline prep. AI-driven scheduling cuts idle time. Each change removes a small amount of human labor. Together, they reshape the workforce. The result is a job market that looks intact but functions differently. Fewer total workers support the same volume of sales. Those remaining work harder, faster, and under tighter supervision. For employees, this feels like constant pressure. Shifts are more intense. Breaks feel rushed. Mistakes are less tolerated. The margin for error shrinks. And because these jobs pay hourly wages, fewer hours means lower income, even without formal layoffs. That's the first hidden cut. Fast food companies rarely announce layoffs because they don't need to. They simply stop hiring. They let attrition do the work. When someone quits, the position stays empty. The workload is redistributed. The schedule tightens. Over time, the store runs with fewer people permanently. This strategy protects public image while achieving the same cost reduction. Labor is the largest controllable expense in fast food. Food costs fluctuate. Rent is fixed. Utilities rise. But labor can be adjusted quietly and continuously. By 2026, most major chains have made that adjustment standard practice. Another factor accelerating this shift is rising wages. While higher pay sounds positive, it changes corporate behavior. When labor becomes more expensive, companies invest aggressively in systems that reduce headcount. This creates a paradox. Workers earn slightly more per hour, but work fewer hours overall. Total income stagnates or falls. Stability doesn't improve. For workers who relied on consistent scheduling, this is devastating. Budgeting becomes impossible. Income fluctuates week to week. A job no longer guarantees predictable pay. And because these roles often support people living paycheck to paycheck, even small reductions in hours create immediate stress. This is where fast food's role in the economy begins to change. These jobs were never glamorous, but they were reliable. They provided entry points for young workers, immigrants, and people without formal credentials. They offered flexibility. They absorbed labor during downturns. Now they're doing the opposite. They're becoming lean, high-pressure environments with limited hours, limited advancement, and shrinking opportunity. Managers feel this pressure too. Store-level leadership is being consolidated. One manager oversees more responsibilities. Support roles disappear. Regional oversight becomes remote and data-driven. Human judgment is replaced with metrics. If labor costs rise above targets, hours are cut. If productivity dips, staffing is adjusted downward. There is little room for discretion. This creates a feedback loop. Understaffing increases stress. Stress increases turnover. Turnover is no longer replaced. Remaining workers absorb the workload. Performance expectations rise. Burnout accelerates. The system survives, the workers don't. And because fast food jobs sit at the foundation of the service economy, what happens here spreads outward. When these jobs shrink, fewer people can afford discretionary spending. Local businesses feel it. Rent becomes harder to pay. Debt fills the gap. Fast food workers aren't just employees, they're consumers. When their income becomes unstable, demand weakens quietly across entire communities. This is why what's happening matters far beyond restaurants. The fast food industry is often treated as a bellwether for low-wage labor. When it contracts, it signals a broader shift in how companies view entry-level work. What we're seeing now isn't a temporary correction, it's a redesign. Fast food companies have learned they can operate with fewer people. That lesson doesn't get unlearned. Once efficiency targets are met, there's no incentive to rebuild the old workforce. Growth doesn't mean hiring, it means scaling systems. This is why the current wave feels different. In past slowdowns, fast food rebounded quickly, hiring surged, hours returned. Jobs reappeared. This time the structure has changed, and as we move deeper into this story, the implications become clearer. Not just for fast food workers, but for the entire low-wage job market that depends on these roles as a foundation. Because when the most accessible jobs in the economy start disappearing quietly, the damage doesn't show up in headlines first. It shows up in people's lives. Once fast food companies proved they could operate with fewer workers, the logic didn't stop at individual stores. It scaled across the industry. Corporate leadership didn't see this as a crisis. They saw it as validation. Sales volumes stabilized. Drive-through times improved. Mobile ordering increased efficiency. Profit margins held up better than expected. From a business perspective, the experiment worked. And when something works at scale, it becomes policy. By 2026, reduced staffing models were no longer temporary adjustments. They were built into forecasts, budgets, and long-term planning. Labor assumptions changed permanently. This is where the job losses become harder to track. Employment numbers don't collapse overnight because positions vanish through attrition, not termination. A store that once employed 30 workers now runs with 22. Another drops from 22 to 16. Over time, thousands of jobs disappear without a single headline. What remains is a workforce stretched thin. Workers describe shifts that feel relentless. There's no downtime, no buffer. Every minute is measured, every movement optimized. Performance is monitored through systems that don't account for human limits. Schedules fluctuate week to week. Hours are trimmed based on real-time demand forecasts. Workers are sent home early if traffic dips, called in unexpectedly if orders spike. This instability makes planning life nearly impossible. People can't rely on consistent income. Budgeting becomes guesswork. Rent, utilities, transportation, all fixed costs, collide with unpredictable pay. The result is constant anxiety. This instability disproportionately affects people already on the edge: students, immigrants, parents juggling childcare, older workers relying on these jobs as supplemental income. Fast food was once a stabilizer for these groups. Now it amplifies risk. Another quiet shift is happening behind the scenes: skill compression. As roles disappear, remaining workers are expected to do everything: cooking, cleaning, cash handling, order fulfillment, problem solving. Multitasking becomes mandatory, not optional. Training shortens. Experience matters less than speed. Workers are interchangeable by design. This reduces bargaining power. When jobs are simplified and standardized, workers become easier to replace. Even as hiring slows, the threat of replacement hangs over those still employed. This dynamic suppresses wages, even when hourly rates rise on paper. Workers may earn a higher nominal wage, but lose income through reduced hours, increased workload, and fewer opportunities for advancement. Promotions become rare. Management tracks flatten. Assistant manager roles disappear. Regional oversight replaces local leadership. Career paths narrow. For many workers, fast food was never meant to be permanent, but it provided a bridge to something else, or at least to stability. That bridge is eroding. At the same time, technology accelerates the trend. Self-order kiosks expand. Mobile apps handle payments. AI-driven inventory systems reduce prep labor. Voice automation begins entering drive-thrus. Each innovation is marketed as customer convenience. The labor impact is rarely discussed. None of these technologies eliminate entire stores. They eliminate roles, and roles don't come back. This creates a chilling effect across the broader service sector. Other industries watch closely: retail, hospitality, warehousing. If fast food can operate leaner, others follow. The model spreads. Workers notice too. They see fewer openings, less flexibility, more pressure. Entry-level work stops feeling accessible. This changes how people view the job market. The idea that there's always work somewhere begins to fade. People stop quitting bad jobs because they're not confident another one exists. They tolerate worse conditions. They accept instability. That acceptance is dangerous. It allows companies to normalize conditions that would have been unacceptable before. Short staffing becomes standard. Burnout becomes expected. Turnover becomes baked into the system. The workforce adapts, but at a cost. Health suffers. Mental strain increases. Injuries rise as people rush and multitask. Mistakes happen under pressure. Consequences fall on workers, not systems. And because fast food workers often lack benefits, the cost of burnout is externalized. Healthcare issues go untreated. Stress compounds. Absences increase, which leads to further understaffing. The cycle tightens. What makes this shift particularly significant is scale. Fast food employs millions of people. It shapes expectations for what entry-level work looks like. When it becomes unstable, the ripple effects are enormous. Communities with heavy fast food employment feel the impact first. Reduced income leads to reduced spending. Local economies slow. Rent arrears rise. Debt fills gaps. This doesn't trigger an immediate crash. It triggers erosion. The disappearance of fast food jobs doesn't look like unemployment spikes. It looks like underemployment, fewer hours, more jobs per person, more juggling, less security. People work more to earn the same or less. This undermines the very function fast food once served in the economy. It was a buffer, a pressure valve, a place where people could always find work, even temporarily. Now it's becoming another point of compression. And once that buffer is gone, pressure builds elsewhere. That's why this story doesn't end with fast food. It leads directly into a broader question about what happens when the most accessible jobs in the economy quietly disappear. Not through crisis, but through efficiency. Because when that happens, the effects don't stay confined to one industry. They reshape how work itself functions. When fast food stops functioning as a safety net, the consequences don't stay inside restaurants. They move outward into the labor market, the economy, and everyday life. Fast food has always been more than an industry. It has been an entry point, a fallback, a place people went when other options disappeared. When that role weakens, the entire structure of low-wage work becomes more fragile. What we're seeing now is the slow disappearance of guaranteed work. Not guaranteed pay, not good conditions. Just the guarantee that work will be there. That guarantee mattered more than people realized. For decades, the assumption was simple. If things got bad, you could always find something, a few shifts, a part-time role, a way to cover rent or buy time. That assumption shaped risk-taking across the economy. People felt safer leaving bad jobs, safer moving cities, safer trying something new. Now that safety is fading. When fast food jobs shrink, competition for remaining entry-level work intensifies. Retail, hospitality, warehouses, and delivery services absorb the pressure. Wages stagnate. Scheduling becomes more erratic. Employers gain leverage. Workers feel it immediately. People take multiple jobs not to get ahead, but to stabilize income. Schedules overlap. Sleep suffers. Burnout accelerates. Life becomes a constant balancing act. And because these jobs often lack benefits, the cost of instability is absorbed privately. Health issues go untreated. Stress compounds. Mistakes become more likely. One missed shift or minor injury can cascade into serious consequences. This is how economic fragility spreads, without appearing in unemployment data. Underemployment replaces unemployment. Exhaustion replaces idleness. People are technically working, but barely holding on. The system reads this as resilience. From the outside, it looks like adaptation. People are still showing up. Stores are still open. Orders are still filled. Productivity remains high. But resilience built on pressure has limits. Over time, the workforce becomes less flexible, not more. People can't afford to quit. They can't afford to retrain. They can't afford gaps. Mobility declines. This locks people into positions that no longer serve them, which reduces overall productivity and innovation. Workers stop learning new skills. Employers stop investing in development. The job market becomes transactional and brittle. Fast food companies don't see this as a problem. From their perspective, efficiency has improved. Labor costs are controlled. Technology fills gaps. Shareholders are satisfied. But what's efficient for companies can be destabilizing for society. When millions of people lose access to predictable entry-level work, the economy loses a buffer. Shocks travel faster. Recoveries slow. Inequality widens quietly. The disappearance of fast food jobs also changes who bears risk. Companies used to absorb fluctuations through staffing. Now workers absorb them through unstable hours and income. Risk is shifted downward, away from balance sheets and onto households. That shift doesn't show up immediately. It accumulates. Missed rent, deferred medical care, rising debt, declining mental health, weaker community ties. These are not abstract outcomes, they're lived realities, and once enough people experience them, behavior changes permanently. People become cautious, they avoid spending, they avoid commitment, they avoid risk. That caution slows economic momentum. The irony is that fast food was once immune to this cycle. It thrived on volume and accessibility. It grew during downturns because it was cheap and labor-intensive. Now it's becoming lean, automated, and selective. That transformation signals something larger. If the most basic jobs in the economy are no longer abundant, then the idea of working your way back loses meaning. Recovery becomes harder. Inequality becomes stickier. This isn't about nostalgia for low-paying jobs. It's about recognizing the role they played. Fast food jobs provided a floor, not comfort, but access. A way in, a way back, a way to survive transitions. That floor is cracking. And when the floor cracks, people don't fall all at once. They sink slowly, adjusting expectations downward as they go. That's why this shift hasn't caused outrage. It's happening quietly, gradually, store by store, shift by shift, hire by hire. By the time it's obvious, the old system is already gone. What replaces it is a labor market that demands more flexibility from workers while offering less in return. More pressure, less security, more efficiency, fewer opportunities. This is not a temporary phase. Once companies learn they can operate with fewer workers, they don't reverse course. They refine the model. They invest in systems. They redesign work. The jobs don't come back. And when entry-level work disappears quietly, the effects don't stay at the bottom. They ripple upward, reshaping how work, risk, and survival function across the economy. Fast food layoffs aren't just about restaurants. They're an early signal of a labor market that no longer prioritizes access, only efficiency. And once access is gone, the cost isn't measured in profits or productivity. It's measured in people who did everything right and still can't find stable footing. That's the reality unfolding now.